You're listening to episode 39 of Literacy in Color. Welcome to the Literacy in Color podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Sullivan, a science of reading advocate with over a decade of experience as a reading interventionist and literacy coach. I'm passionate about making evidence-based instruction both effective and engaging. If you're interested in captivating our learners on reading fluently and understanding language, or as I like to call it, keeping it colorful, then you've found the right place. Each week, we'll explore intriguing lit bits and practical strategies around the science of reading and structured literacy to help you be colorful and teach colorfully. Are you ready to bring literacy to life? Let's color outside the lines and make an impact together. Welcome back to another episode of Literacy in Color. Today's episode is extra special to me because I'm joined by my brilliant friend, fellow word nerd, and morphology bestie, Sarah Paul. And fun fact, I am very aware of names and just pronouncing people's names, being respectful of people's names. If you tell me that's not the correct pronunciation, I'm going to be super cognizant of making sure I say your name correctly. But I'm from New Jersey and I say Sarah.
I love it. I love the way you say my name.
And I didn't even know I was saying it wrong. And somebody else pointed out, it's Sarah. And I was like, Sarah? I've never heard of that. But then Sarah said that she likes when I say Sarah. So I stick with it.
It reminds me of my aunts. I have a bunch of aunts who live in New York and New Jersey, and that's how they say my name. So I kind of love it. And I had a speech impediment growing up where I couldn't say my R's, so I couldn't even say my own name. And the way you say it is actually a little bit easier for people who struggle with their R's.
That's so funny. My best friend growing up was Sarah, and my mom, also Eastern European, she said Sarah.
Oh.
Well, that was just like how I grew up, how it was said. So anyway.
I love it.
Sarah is a seasoned reading interventionist. She's now a literacy coach, and she's just one of my all-time favorite people to talk to about all things structured literacy. And if you follow us on social media, we've been teasing little nuggets. And today's episode, we're officially pulling back the curtain for our grand reveal on our latest collaboration. You guys, we built a course. It's called Mastering Morphology, Foundations for Every Educator. And it's the first in a comprehensive course series that's going to be designed to help teachers build their knowledge and confidence around morphology. So in today's episode, we're sharing what sparked our love for morphology, how our partnership came to be, some of the biggest challenges teachers face, what you can expect from our course, and really why this work matters so deeply to us. So it's part story, part strategy, but all heart because we truly believe morphology is the missing piece in so many literacy classrooms. So welcome back to the show, Sarah. Let's get right to it.
So excited. Thank you for having me again.
Of course. How did you first get interested in morphology?
Well, I first became interested about morphology after I took a course back in 2016, and it was a structured word inquiry course through Dyslexia Training Institute, and it sort of blew my mind. At the time, I'd already started shifting a little more toward science of reading aligned practices, but this added just a whole new layer. I had no background at all in morphology, so it was a lot, but I started small, and I just found it all so interesting, and it just made sense to me. Even though I didn't get the nitty gritty of it, I was like, yeah, this is for real. I like this. And we talk about this a lot in our course, but I made some mistakes early on and still do, but I kept trying. I'd find little snippets of information here and there about morphology. So it was sort of a slow build for me, but now almost a decade later, and I finally feel like I have like a truly deep understanding. And I'm sure we'll get to this later, but one of the reasons why our course, I'm so excited about it is because I don't want everybody else to take as long as I did to master morphology.
I love that you shared that because I think that so many teachers will relate to that slow build of trying to piece it all together and that feeling of, this is really fascinating, but where do I even begin? And for me, I kind of came at morphology, or I suppose even etymology, from a different doorway. So I've always been really interested in language. So I'm first generation American, 100% Polish, and I grew up speaking both Polish and English at home. And in middle school and high school, I took Spanish. I was really good at it at the time, but if you don't use it, you lose it. And in college, I studied Portuguese and Latin, and that's where I really started becoming obsessed with the meanings behind words. So I studied humanities, classics, religious studies in my undergrad, and I had a few professors who would casually drop these little golden nuggets about language, like this word comes from the Latin, blah, blah, blah. I'd have this jaw dropping, eyes widening reaction, like, this is so cool. And I remember one time a professor mentioned the Latin word fidelis, meaning faithful, loyal, devoted. And she tied it to the Marine Corps' motto, Semper Fi, always faithful. And she threw in this unexpected gem. Do you ever wonder why so many dogs in the classic books and movies are named Fido? And it turns out Fido comes from Fidelis because dogs are known for their loyalty. And I was just
Oh,
mind blown.
I
And
love
another
that.
example, it was like we get the word cereal from the Roman goddess Ceres, spelled Ceres, because she's the goddess of the grain and of agriculture and of the harvest. And the Disney movie, Finding Nemo. Well, in Latin, Nemo translates to no one, nobody. So it's a play on words, finding no one. So you guys, these little tidbits in my undergrad, they just lit me up. So I always had this fascination with language. But even with my background in language, I didn't fully grasp how morphology fits into structured literacy until later. And I think I always felt its importance, but I didn't have a clear roadmap for how to actually teach it until you're knee deep in it, reading all the books, taking all the webinars, and just doing deep, deep, deep research. So I think that's what makes our course so exciting to me. We're handing teachers the information that we wish we had over all these years. And you don't need a decade of trial and error or deep dive into linguistics to get started. So we've distilled the content in a way that feels rich, but really, really impactful.
Absolutely.
So why do you think teachers should care about morphology?
Well, I've worked with so many students who feel frustrated by spelling and understanding vocabulary because English can feel really unpredictable. And I still hear people say, English is crazy. And I was one of those students. And still, even as an adult, things don't come super easy for me. Where I feel like morphology brings a little order to this chaos and it helps students and myself look at words through a totally different lens. And I use that term a lot, looking through a certain lens. So instead of treating every word like something brand new to memorize, which is really difficult for a lot of people, we can start noticing familiar morphemes. And this really helps with decoding, with spelling, just overall word understanding. And it makes our job as teachers much easier too, because we're not just teaching a bunch of isolated words anymore. We're more teaching connections, meaningful connections. So when you teach morphology, you're giving your students additional tools, and it's tools that often work when those strategies like phoneme grapheme mapping or syllabication kind of fall short, especially with multisyllabic words. Those are absolutely important things to be able to do. Phoneme grapheme mapping, I mean, so much research supports it. I even do teach syllabication and I find it can be helpful, but when you get to bigger words, like beyond 2 syllable words, it just isn't enough. And it's our struggling readers that they fall the most behind because, my husband's one of them. He's someone who can just like remember a word. He's like, I don't know why I know how to spell that. I just do. I'm not one of those people. So the strategies that I think have become really popular kind of only get us to a point. And then morphology has been this sort of eye opening, oh, it's a game changer. So instead of having to memorize these things, morphology just sort of steps in and everything makes a lot more sense. So and that's who needs us the most. As teachers, anyone, any person, any curriculum can teach the people like my husband who just are sort of like, I don't know, I just know how to spell it, right? But if you can help me spell or help young Sarah decode, I mean, then you're really helping. Then that's our job right there.
I love it. I couldn't agree more. And I love how you talked about the different lenses because different words lend to different ways to kind of solidify your understanding. And there are some words that I just wouldn't use phoneme grapheme mapping with.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other words that where that's my first line of defense. So
Mm-hmm.
it just adds to your repertoire. And with morphology too, I've seen that same transformation firsthand. Like so many kids who just think they're bad at spelling or just not good at words. But once we start breaking up those words and showing them the logic behind it, I love how you talked about finding order in the chaos before, they light up. And it's like giving them, I like to think of it like X-ray vision.
I love
We're
that.
giving them X-ray vision into the structure of words. And from a teacher's perspective, it's just a relief to move from this overwhelm to a sense of clarity, to feel like you have a system for tackling the bigger words or maybe some of the trickier words out there.
Yep.
Because there is a rhyme or reason to some of those obscure pronunciations or silent letters and all of those so called crazy things in our language.
Yep.
So, what are some of the biggest challenges teachers face when teaching morphology, and how can they overcome them?
I think one of the biggest challenges is that we don't know where to begin. We know that, like, okay, I want to teach morphology, but it's like we don't have, at least I speak for myself, I didn't have the understanding, that deeper understanding in order to start teaching it. There wasn't a scope and sequence. We've been trained that we need a scope and sequence to follow, but there isn't really one out there, a clear one out there. So I just think there's not that clear roadmap. But I really do think the biggest challenge is just teacher knowledge. If we don't feel confident about our own knowledge of morphology, then how can we be the experts when we're teaching? But I have to say, start small, build your knowledge alongside with your students. You don't need a full curriculum to begin. You don't need a full scope and sequence to begin. So, for example, you might just choose a prefix or a base word and explore it. Look at how it shows up in a few words. That alone can open the door to some really powerful conversations about meaning, spelling, and structure. And then just keep going, keep noticing, start weaving it into what you're already doing in phonics. For me, it was like, okay, I'm going to really dig into suffix s and suffix ed. And then I kind of got a little more comfortable with more affixes. And then I realized it's actually all about the base. And I started being like, oh, we see this base in this word and this word. And I might not have the answer, but let's go find it together. You kind of learn with your students and you start to point out morphemes during a decoding lesson. Or maybe you're reading a text and you see a word that you can tell, even as the teacher, oh, I see that has more than one morpheme. I'm just going to go ahead and point that out to my students. And we're just going to look, because right there, you're looking at the structure of the word and you're getting your students to notice the structure of the word. And not to shamelessly plug our course or anything, but truly one of the best ways to build confidence is just to deepen your own understanding. And the more you learn about how words work, the more comfortable you'll feel teaching it. It could be our course or somebody else's course. It could be a book you read or even just following accounts on Instagram about morphology. But investing in your own learning truly, truly is the first step.
Yes to all of that. I I love all of that. And honestly, I think teachers just need to hear this kind of like permission slip that it's okay to start small. And so often we think that we need to have it all figured out before we try something new. But some of the best learning happens alongside our students. And I always say you don't have to be a linguist to start teaching morphology. You just need that curiosity and a willingness to look at words a little bit differently. And that's really why we built our course, to take out all this guesswork, to give teachers the language and the tools and examples that they need to just show them that they're more ready than they think they are.
Absolutely. That background can go a long way.
Definitely. So, how has teaching morphology impacted your students?
I think it's been a game changer, to be honest. Mainly, it's changed the way we all interact with words. So, once students start learning about morphemes, you can actually see this shift in them. They begin to notice them everywhere. They'll notice a prefix in a word, or they might point out, oh, hey, transport, is that the same as portable? They just start to make those connections and they become aware that maybe there is a connection. And here's the thing, even if they're not right, even if they make a connection and it turns out that it's not a shared morpheme, there's magic in that. There's a lot of learning right there. So it's kind of like the lights turn on and they start to realize that words aren't just strings of letters, they're made up of meaningful parts. And instead of feeling overwhelmed by these long, unfamiliar words, they start to break them down and look at what they know. So morphology makes students analyze words, analyze with a capital A. I think that's the difference. And it's been a huge mindset shift for me as well, especially for those students who struggle with reading and spelling. It's just kind of a mindset shift that changes a lot. And again, it also impacts their vocabulary. You talk a lot about this on your Instagram page and through webinars I've watched with you. And it's so true. When they learn one new word, they're likely to connect it to all the other related words that have shared morphemes. And honestly, it's all more fun that way. Word study becomes this curious puzzle like process. And I think that can be contagious and it can be joyful and just a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I've seen that same shift. And honestly, it's one of the most joyful parts of teaching. And that's why I love working with you too, because I think we put the JOY in it. You know, so much joy and happiness and love has gone into this project. But
So
there's
much.
nothing better than watching a student who used to shut down at multisyllabic words suddenly light up because they recognize a morpheme. It just builds so much confidence. And I remember a student once proudly telling me, Mrs. Sullivan, interrupt has RUPT like eruption, and it means burst. And we saw that. It's moments like that where you realize this isn't just academic, it's not just word study, it's empowering. And they start to feel like these word detectives. And you can see how it ripples into their reading and their spelling and their vocabulary and their writing and just their curiosity, which is so special.
So special. And I love that interruption and eruption because it's true. An interruption sometimes does feel like you're erupting because you like have an idea that you have to get out. So it's fun to look at the meaning relationship there.
Exactly. And then the kid who disrupts the class is like, whoa. What's one thing that surprised you about teaching morphology over the years?
Honestly, I think what surprises me most is how interesting words are and also how much it's helped me as a learner and as a speller and as someone who I don't consider myself as having like a large vocabulary. So I originally got into morphology for my students and to improve my instruction. You know, a lot of us do that. We go into things because we really want to grow in our craft. And I think most teachers are like that. But over the years, I think it's become more than that. At least for me, I've developed a full blown word obsession. And I think that you can relate to this. And I catch myself looking at words all the time. It's not enough anymore to know how to spell them. I want to know about their history. I want to know about their relatives. And I just find it so interesting. And it's just all out of pure curiosity. So through that curiosity, it's helped with my own spelling. And then, of course, it helps me become a better teacher as well to my students. And I've just never been one of those people, like I said, who can see a word and know that it's spelled correctly or not correctly, but understanding how they're built, how the words are built has been a total game changer. We talk about this in our course, but one just small example, because I feel like I can't be the only person out there. I can finally spell the word definitely correctly every time. And it used to trip me up. I would be like, definitely. I couldn't figure out like what the vowels would be in the middle because of that schwa sound. But now I just see morphemes when I write that word. And we go over that one in our course and it just makes sense to me now how to spell it. So that's been a huge one because it's those words that we spell all the time that we should know them because we spell them all the time. But I think it's because we spell them wrong all the time too. That it's like, how do I spell this word? And I hopefully nobody's judging me at home. Or maybe you're like, oh, good, I'm not the only one. Word definitely got me every time.
I know, but that and necessary, right?
Oh,
That one always would trip me up. And I'm cracking up because same, I never expected morphology to become such a personal rabbit hole, but somewhere along the way, it just turned into this full blown fascination. And gosh, I'll be out at dinner and I'm looking at the menu, and suddenly I'm dissecting a word like appetizer. And I'm thinking, wait, that reminds me of the French phrase bon appetit. And then it's like, oh yeah, good appetite. So appetizer, appetite. Like if you have a big appetite, you're really hungry. They've got to be related.
that's
And once you start seeing those morphemes, you just can't unsee them. You can't stop making these connections. It's just ingrained in you.
so true. Can't stop.
And I love that you mentioned spelling because even as adults, understanding structure just makes the language feel so much more logical. And I always say it's not about memorizing these long letter strings, it's about putting these meaningful parts together. And I don't know what the rest of you are doing on a Friday night, but Sarah and I are here texting each other things like, wait, have you thought about this word? Or how do you think this word would be broken down? And these are the things that are fun for us.
So fun.
And
So it's a
again,
nerd friendship.
it's full on obsession and we're not mad about it.
Nope.
And oh my goodness, tell everyone what you did at the doctor the other day.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. I of course texted Michelle right away after this. I was at the doctor and she was going over my chart and she was like spelling something out, and a hospital near us is Providence. And here's a doctor who's reading words that I've never heard of, prescription words. And I'm like, I could never spell that. But she was, oh wait, she's talking to herself and she says, how do I spell Providence? And I go, oh, I have a trick for that. If you relate it to the word provide, you can clearly hear that I, so you don't have to wonder about Providence. And after it like came out of my mouth, I was like, I cannot believe I just said this to a doctor who is so smart and was just talking to herself. Anyway, she chuckled and she's like, "Oh, you're a teacher." And I I said, "Yeah, sorry. I just was really excited about that because I just learned about resident, reside, providence, provide, and it just really helps me with my spelling." Anyway, we had a good chuckle over that. And then of course, I was so embarrassed and I had to text the one person who would understand that I did that, and that's you.
She's never going to forget that now. That was her.
It's so true. And I have to just go back to one more thing when you were talking about spelling for adults. You mentioned even with adults, it can be hard. And it just makes me think about how something that we don't talk a lot about is that when someone is dyslexic, it's the spelling that does not tend to get better. All dyslexics, for the most part, they learn to read. It might be a hard road, but they learn to read. And what sticks is the spelling struggle. That doesn't really go away. And I know, at least on social media, and when we talk about the science of reading and those kinds of practices, I think the messaging out there is, oh, if you just do phoneme grapheme mapping and this other thing, and their spelling will be great. Like, it'll be great. And that's not actually the case with many of our dyslexic learners. But I do think morphology is the key. It's something that helps so much because it goes deeper than memorizing. It goes until they really understand the structure of words. So I just want to make sure I said that before we moved on because you sparked a little, just made me think of it.
Yeah, 100%. And if you think about our dyslexic learners, so many of them are so bright.
Yes.
They have this logic and creativity,
Mhm.
and morphology becomes this interesting puzzle to solve. And it's finally like, ooh, it's a code to crack instead of, oh my goodness, these pronunciations and sounds are so confusing. So it just becomes
Exactly.
this different kind of beast to tackle. And I think a lot of our dyslexic students find so much success with morphology.
You're so right. And I'm so glad you said that. We know that our dyslexic learners have average to often above average intelligence. And it's just reading and spelling that are really difficult for them. And that instruction can be so boring and but not morphology. And I found that those students who are like, oh, I just please don't give me another phonics thing by the time they get to fourth grade. They might not mind it when they're little, but they get to fourth grade and they're just like, I still can't spell. But then morphology is, it's more like exploration and
Investigation.
yeah, investigation. I was like, is it investigatory? See, now I want to look it up. Now I want to be like, what's the word? But it leads to investigation. I'll say that. So since morphology leads to investigation, that is interesting to these very, very, very bright students who are tired of doing by fourth grade what feels like baby phonics. They don't want that anymore. They want to be treated like the super intelligent kids that they are. And I really think morphology and etymology does just that for them.
Totally. And just like piggybacking off of that again, I feel like morphology can be the secret sauce for your students who are struggling, but also for your gifted students. Really,
Hmm.
everyone benefits from it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just,
It's so true. Gifted kids love, I mean, it's so fun for them because they're like, oh, this is so much more fun because I don't have to try to memorize spelling a word, but to really understand it. That's interesting.
yeah. So let's dig into some practical tips. Or what are one to two maybe simple tips teachers can take into consideration when trying to figure this whole morphology thing out?
I think first, don't worry about being perfect. Be curious. You don't need to know everything before you start, but be open with your students. Say, let's explore this word together. Model this curiosity, and it can show that word study is about discovery, not just memorization. Also, I'd say look for word relatives, not just focus on individual words. So when you teach a word like help, show students the other words in the family: helper, helping, helpful, helpless. And then for older students, it might be looking at a base like SCRIBE or SCRIPT. Now, we always spell out morphemes, but just for the sake of the podcast, I'll say scribe and script, and exploring how it appears in words like describe, description, prescription, manuscript, subscription. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and talking about how that base combines with these different affixes and it can change the word slightly. So using those relatives is so powerful, and you don't need to know everything about it. It takes a little bit of time to learn these relatives, and also making morphology visible. We talk a lot about this a lot in our course, but word matrices, word sums, color coding morphemes to help them stand out. Making morphology visible is so, so, so powerful and helps them internalize it all.
Yeah, I love all of these things, and especially the reminder to stay curious. And I think so many teachers feel the pressure to be the expert. But some of the best moments that I've had with students came from saying, let's explore this word together. Let's figure this out together. And sure, there's a baseline of teacher knowledge that is important to have off the cuff. But that curiosity aspect is so important, and I think we take that for granted. It models inquiry, and it just takes the fear out of not knowing. And gosh, if you were to throw a word at me right now, I don't know it all. I know a
No.
lot, and I've studied a lot, but I just don't hold all of this information in my brain all of the time. There's a lot of things I'm looking up day to day. If you were to search my history, it's Edam Online on repeat.
Yes.
And I'll also add, don't underestimate the power of repetition. So keep coming back to those word parts across subjects, across texts, across routines. And the more that these students see them, the more confident that they're going to become and internalizing them. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be consistent and meaningful.
Absolutely.
So do you want to share how our collaboration came to be?
Yeah, I do. This is such a fun story. I think it's a fun story. So at first, we followed each other on Instagram, right? I don't remember when we started following each other, but at one point, I was like, Michelle is the real deal. I'm like, oh, she gets it. She's for real. And that's a big compliment. I was like, oh, she knows her stuff. She's not just repeating what someone else said. She knows it. So we start messaging with each other. I don't remember. I don't remember if I reached out to you first, but we start messaging and we became friends, right? And then we met in real life at a conference. Is there anything I've missed so far?
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay. Then I remember thinking like, I want to do more with morphology. And I thought, Michelle and I would be a really, really good team. And what sealed the deal was that we were both separately presenting sessions for different reading conferences. And I remember I would call you and I'd be like, okay, Michelle, I have 3 hours of presentation material and I need to cut it down to 45 minutes by tomorrow. How do I do this? And you would just be like, I think you're sharing too much. I'm like, yeah, I have too much to share. And you would have the same problem. You'd be like, I have so much I want to share and I have to like whittle it down to 45 minutes or an hour. And that led me to our idea. I was like, what if we stop trying to cram everything into a 1 hour PD and instead create something that's truly comprehensive, full cohesive, no time limit course where we go real deep and show teachers how to teach morphology, give them that background that we've developed over almost, well, for you, longer than almost a decade, in a way that's meaningful and doable. And I just thought also I could do this by myself, but that would be a lot less fun. And I just think, for one, two brains are better than one, but also like two friends are more fun. And I think we've had a lot of fun along the way. So that's how we came to be.
100%. And I remember even like DMing with you after watching one of your presentations and just like, oh my gosh, I was so blown away. I could listen to you speak for hours. I love when I see you present. And you said something like, oh my gosh, that means a lot coming from you because I respect everything that you have to say. And here I am thinking like, oh, Sarah Paul, like, thinks the world of me when I think the world of her. I've been reading her blog for my whole life. I think we just both held each other in the highest regard. And for those of you who know us personally, I mean, Sarah is like such a kind and joyful soul. And I hope she thinks the same of me, but we're just like good people. And I think too, with this whole science of reading movement, people would be afraid. They join these Facebook groups and they're like, oh, it's intense. People argue and say, you're wrong, and this and that. And we just have a similar philosophy to come at things with kindness and joy and helping people and just like a feel good mentality.
Yes.
And what sealed the deal for me too, it was in realizing just how aligned we were, not just in what we believe, but in where we've been. We both go way back in this work, just fully immersed in the literacy realm as interventionists and as coaches, just deep in the trenches. And you since 2012 and me since 2013. So when we talk about morphology or even just literacy in general, it's not from this surface level understanding. We're not just jumping on this buzzword bandwagon. There's a depth to our work. And we do it because we lived it and we have supported the struggling readers and we've led PD and we've coached teachers and we know what it looks like in real classrooms with real time constraints and all of the realness that goes into education. And I think that shared experience and our depth of knowledge gave us this like-minded drive to just create something different. There's nothing like this out there that's just so aligned with the research, but also just very teacher friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. The both of those is so important. We have that research base and we've studied, but we also have that teacher friendly, like we've tried it. And you and I both talked about the same phenomenon of I'll be doing something and I'll try something and I'll get messages, okay, when's your next thing coming out? When's your product coming out? And I'm like, oh, I'm still experimenting with it. And it's like 5 years later. And you're the same. We're like, oh no, we're just like making sure that we like really got this right. So yeah, we're not rushing things along. And I think that's something I saw in you also of just we really want to be really true to our work.
Internalizing all the information. And so we're calling ourselves Logos Literacy Academy. And one thing, we were like playing around with names, like, ooh, what should we call ourselves? And I was laughing because my elder millennial self was like, oh, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, we're like the word slayers. But I was like, that doesn't sound very professional, but underlying, we're like slaying words.
And I'm a huge Buffy fan. So the fact that we're Sarah Michelle, I'm like, ooh, this is meant to be. This is meant to be.
Oh no. I feel like I said that like Monica from Friends. Oh, but now that we're on all the TV references. So, what are you most excited about with our Mastering Morphology course?
I have not been this excited about a project in a long time. I am so excited about it. And I'm really ready to finally get all of the knowledge that's been swirling around in my head into an organized, structured format. I mean, that's what feels so good to just take everything I've learned and experimented with over the years and turn it into something that's accessible and hopefully empowers teachers to feel ready to apply it. And more than that, I'm excited to connect with other educators. I'm hoping to spread this excitement about morphology.
Me too. And I honestly, I just can't wait for teachers to experience that, oh, now this makes sense moment. And I think about how many times I've gotten DMs like, how do you know this? How do you know all this? Is there a course you've taken? And no, I haven't just like taken a course and learned all of these things. But now we've put all of our knowledge into one course. So there is something that
Yeah.
exists out there. And that's just the heartbeat of this course for me. It's just like taking what can feel overwhelming or abstract and just making it visual and practical and joy filled.
So excited.
So let's talk about what they can expect from our new course.
Well, first of all, it isn't just the one course. We have the one course that's coming out first, but it's going to be a series of courses. And I was really excited. I think you had that idea of like, let's make it a series because we have so much to share. And it's designed to support teachers at every step of their morphology journey. So we're starting with the foundations course, and this focuses on building your knowledge as a teacher. Because like we talked about, that is the first step. We want teachers to feel confident in their own understanding first. So we just felt like we really want to get all of that knowledge into that first course so they have a really, really good foundation. So we'll cover everything from morphemes and word sums to etymology, pronunciation shifts, how English spelling actually works. And then we're going to follow up with those two additional courses. one that focuses on morphology instruction in K2 and the other for grades 3 through 5. And this is when we'll dive into what it actually looks like to teach morphology in a structured literacy classroom with examples, routines, student work, and activities that are tailored to each of those age groups.
I'm so glad you said that because we're really here for the long haul for anyone who really wants to deepen their knowledge. So Mastering Morphology is going to be our first course, and it's building this strong foundation because let's be real, most of us didn't get this in our teacher prep programs. And then once teachers feel grounded in their knowledge, we're going to zoom in on what this looks like in action. So we're going to have a K2 and a 3-5 course coming where it all comes to life with real classroom lessons, examples, routines, strategies, all the things that you can use right away. And it's everything we wish we had when we were figuring this all out.
Yes.
So if you're as excited about morphology as we are, or even if you're just curious and want to learn more, we'd love for you to check out Mastering Morphology and our other upcoming courses. So whether you're brand new to this work or looking to go deeper, we've got you covered. So you can find the link in the show notes to learn more about the course series and connect with us. And if you have any questions or you just want to geek out over words, our DMs are always open. And we truly believe this work can be transformational for you and your students. And we're so excited to walk alongside you on your journey.
Thank you so much for tuning into Literacy in Color. I hope today's episode left you feeling both inspired and equipped with something new to add to your teaching toolkit. If you're enjoying this podcast, it would truly mean so much to me if you'd leave a 5-star review. It helps other educators find the show and join our colorful community. And don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. For more tips, tools, and resources, be sure to check out the links in the show notes at michelleandthecolorfulclassroom.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week. Until then, be colorful and teach colorfully.